Welcome to Planetterrian Daily, episode 51 for April 27th, 2026. Let's get into today's research and health developments. Mixing workout types over decades lowers mortality risk more effectively than repeating the same activity. Long-term research tracking over 100,000 people for more than 3 decades found that incorporating a variety of physical activities, rather than sticking to one type, significantly reduces overall risk of death. The benefits appear independent of total exercise volume, which makes the finding particularly striking for anyone already moving regularly, but perhaps in the same patterns week after week. Participants who regularly rotated through different modalities, including aerobic strength, flexibility, and balance work, showed meaningfully lower all-cause and cardiovascular mortality than those who maintained a single routine. The curve flattened after roughly 4 to 5 distinct activity types per week, suggesting diminishing returns beyond that mix. This points to a practical lever almost anyone can pull without necessarily increasing workout time or intensity. It is the kind of behavioral insight that fits neatly into real life, whether you add a yoga session one day, swimming the next, and some resistance work later in the week. While varied movement on land supports longer human life in the ocean tells a more surprising story about how tiny microbial communities shape the fate of materials we discard. Researchers at Gunma University showed that byproducts from crab shells alter the microbial communities on plastic surfaces known as the plastosphere, thereby reducing how quickly biodegradable plastics degrade in seawater. This shift in the biofilm significantly slows the enzymatic degradation of certain materials once they reach marine environments. The work demonstrates that the composition of that living layer can be deliberately influenced through additives derived from chitin. It could allow designers to create materials that remain functional during use, yet break down on a more controlled timeline once discarded in the ocean. Rather than hoping plastics simply disappear, the research invites us to design with the biology in mind from the beginning. The same principle that invisible biological communities can drive big outcomes appears in an unexpected place, the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Analysis of the exclusion zone reveals that the real driver of abundant wildlife is the lack of human disturbance and habitat disruption, rather than any adaptive benefit from radiation exposure. The findings reframe popular narratives about genetic changes in local species like dogs. Wildlife populations have recovered strongly in the absence of hunting, farming, and development, even though the landscape carries a legacy of contamination. This highlights how quickly ecosystems can rebound when human pressure is removed. It offers a hopeful data point for conservation biology in other historically impacted regions. From thriving ecosystems recovering in the absence of humans, we turn to another domain where human coordination can mean the difference between life and death. Scientists from Koch University and collaborators built a routing model that integrates fairness metrics directly into logistics, cutting inequality in unmet demand by up to 34% while preserving delivery speed. The approach embeds equity considerations into the algorithm itself rather than treating them as an afterthought. This maintains the rapid response times that emergency situations demand. The tool offers humanitarian agencies a practical way to balance efficiency and equity during real emergencies. In practice, it could mean more consistent aid reaching marginalized communities without slowing overall distribution. Models like this show how applied mathematics can quietly improve outcomes in high-stakes environments. Shifting from policy landscapes to the research landscape itself, we have a few brief signals from the biotech and pharma world. The company noted strong performance from its core instruments and services amid robust orders from pharmaceutical and biotech customers, plus the recent integration of its Clario acquisition. Results reflect continued investment in new technologies supporting research and clinical work. Data compiled by the Bioindustry Association indicate a rebound in investment after a slowdown in mid-2025, with total equity raise climbing in the first quarter. The uptick offers a tentative positive sign for the sector's access to capital. On the human side, a recent biochemistry graduate who relocated to Chicago 7 months ago reports limited responses after 2 months of applications for research assistant and lab technician roles. The post asks about promising local institutions, the value of university volunteering, and strategies to strengthen candidacy ahead of a planned PhD application. It is a reminder of how challenging the transition from classroom to laboratory can be, even for motivated new graduates. Many early career scientists face similar stretches of radio silence while building experience. Now let's take a closer look at the longevity finding we opened with, because it deserves a moment of reflection. Tracking more than 100,000 adults across more than 30 years, the study isolates the effect of activity variety independent of total exercise volume. Participants who regularly rotated through different modalities showed meaningfully lower all-cause and cardiovascular mortality. The curve flattened after roughly 4 to 5 distinct activity types per week. This suggests a sweet spot that most people could reach by simply mixing walking, swimming weights, and balance work across a normal week. The beauty lies in how accessible the change feels. You do not need longer workouts or higher intensity, just a bit more rotation in what you already enjoy. What mix of movement types have you found easiest to sustain over years? You've probably heard that once a plastic item reaches the ocean, it simply drifts until it physically fragments or sinks. In reality, the surface of every piece of plastic quickly becomes coated with a complex living biofilm of bacteria, algae, and fungi, whose composition and activity determine how fast or whether the polymer breaks down. Right now, as you listen, trillions of these microscopic communities are reshaping marine debris worldwide, turning inert trash into dynamic ecosystems that can either accelerate or retard degradation. One memorable number: a single square centimeter of ocean plastic can host more than 1 million microbial cells within days of immersion. Researchers have now shown that adding chitin-derived compounds from crab shells shifts the species' balance inside that biofilm, slowing the enzymatic attack on certain biodegradable plastics. This offers a tunable dial between durability and eventual breakdown. The practical takeaway is to watch for emerging materials science that deliberately engineers the plastosphere rather than fighting it. Next time you hear about ocean-friendly plastics, ask what is known about the specific microbes it attracts. Understanding this hidden biological layer changes how we design everything from packaging to fishing gear. Before we go, keep an eye on how new routing algorithms and plastosphere research might start influencing real-world disaster response and material standards in the coming months. That covers today's science and health news. Share this with someone who's curious about the latest research. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you next time. This podcast is curated by Patrick, but generated using AI voice synthesis of my voice using ElevenLabs. The primary reason to do this is I unfortunately don't have the time to be consistent with generating all the content and wanted to focus on creating consistent and regular episodes for all the themes that I enjoy, and I hope others do as well.